And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great Pat Davidson. Pat, thank you very much for joining us.
Gene, it's great to be here, man. We go way back, and it's really good to catch up again.
Absolutely. Actually, Dr. Pat Davidson, I'm quite certain you've earned it.
Yeah, man. We were both students at Springfield College. They put us through the ringer. And, I always said it's a sure sign of the apocalypse if I actually get that doctor in front of my name. So, I could have told you COVID was coming like 10 years ago.
That's great. That's great. Well, I know you're a man who's done a lot of deep research, and you're always good for an honest opinion. So I wanted to bring you on to share 5 of the biggest misconceptions or your biggest pet peeves with strength and conditioning as they stand today. It doesn't have to be in any order, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, we'll see. It's funny, trying to think of 5 or these lists is sometimes challenging, but I can usually always think of things that kind of bother me. But, for the most part, as an overall model, I think that when people don't have really some kind of guiding paradigm or thought process or model that they're working from, that's the biggest problem that I usually see. It's almost like people in the fitness industry just sort of do random things just because they're hard sometimes. And, for me, I really am a huge believer in the scientific method and progress. And if you're going to be doing that, it really has to be based on categorization, defining what something does, knowing the very specific adaptations that come from doing a specific kind of movement under the specific loading circumstances that you do it, the velocity, the duration, and then are you progressing that thing appropriately? So I'm not sure if this is one thing, 5 things that I'm going through, but it's I don't see enough people with an appreciation for really having a good solid model that they're working from. And then you're either training or you're just doing random movement. And if you're training, you're going somewhere. There's a direction and there's a roadmap, and someone's telling you exactly how to get from point A to point B. And I think that most people are looking for that in their lives. A lot of people are just spinning their wheels and not really going anywhere. And sometimes they try hard and sometimes they see some results, but then they can kind of go backwards. So when you're able to really guide people in a logical, systematic manner from where they are right now to where they say they want to be, that's what really is results oriented and the kind of thing that gives people satisfaction, and it actually gives people a purpose and meaning to their lives that they can then take to other parts of their life that they're struggling with. So that's really to me the biggest thing that I see as a missing piece in the fitness industry. From there it's just sort of I get kind of nitpicky about some of the I don't, if somebody has a good idea about what it is that they want to do, I'm never going to argue with somebody over their goals. Every individual's goals are theirs and they're free to choose those things. But oftentimes it's how you go about getting to them and the choices that you make in terms of what you're going to include in the pursuit of your goals. That's where I'll really question, what you're doing and how you're going about it. And because there's usually some sort of evidence-based tactic and technique that will get you to where you want to go that's optimal. And oftentimes people just, either are ignorant of what that is or they choose something that doesn't really target the best approach for it. And that's where I'm hey, you said that you want to gain muscle and lose fat, but you got no resistance training in your program design, and you're on a keto diet. It doesn't really make a ton of sense from everything that science would say is the best approach towards getting what you're saying you want. So I don't know. I mean, I think those are, rather than just 5 little tiny things, those are 2 really, really big hitters to me.
That makes sense. And I guess it's just because the market is oversaturated, or YouTube, you type anything in and information pops up, and very frequently the most catchy title is not necessarily the most intellectual argument.
Yeah, a lot of like sexy kind of Instagram flashy things. And you know what? Like usually like flashy doesn't get results. Fundamentals done for a long time with great intent in a quantitatively progressive manner that demonstrates patience and diligence and determination. Those are the things that really get results. Like otherwise it's just a flash in the pan, and it kind of fizzles for a second, pops, cracks, and then it fades away over time.
Okay, great. Well, what would you say is a general direction people should be moving in? I mean, I know there might be different buckets of general fitness goals, but like gaining muscle, burning fat, general fitness. Yep. What avenue would you tell each of those people to go down?
Yeah, so when you're talking about gaining muscle, it's really like you need to have progressive resistance exercise featured in what you're doing. So that means that you choose the proper exercises for the muscles that you're trying to grow, and from there, it's like you have to over time do things like add weight, add sets, add reps to the program design, and it's got to be in some kind of a logical manner. It's like you don't need to make every set one that's absolute failure every single time. You need to be close to that. But from once you've established that, now it's kind of like a process of making the right choice at the right time. Is it the right choice to add weight at this particular time for the person? Or should you keep the weight the same and add reps? Or should we be looking to add sets with the same weight and the same number of reps? And, generally speaking, it's kind of like sets is really the biggest variable that you should be kind of looking to increase over time. So it's almost like as long as, because sometimes you get into like splitting hairs with people over like, if I lift heavier with lower reps, like that's going to do density training for the muscle. It's like, no, man, that doesn't make any damn sense. Like you can grow muscle just as effectively with higher weight, lower rep sets, or lower weight, higher rep sets. It's really a question of like, are you getting to proximity to failure? Are you putting in good effort every set? And then the more sets that you add to your workout over time, that's going to be the primary driver that really leads towards what you need to check off for the bucket that grows muscle tissue in the workout side of things. From there, it's kind of like we're going to have to talk about diet in terms of what's going to be effective for adding muscle to somebody's frame. And you essentially have to be in some kind of hypercaloric diet. Like you gotta be eating more calories than you're expending on a daily basis, and you have to do that pretty consistently for a good chunk of time. And oftentimes you're going to gain a little bit of fat in the process. But what we kind of know is that if you're somewhere between 250 and 500 calories of the surplus per day, that's enough caloric surplus to gain muscle while minimizing the amount of fat that you're going to gain over time. So progressive resistance exercise, where the person's putting in good effort with good technique and ultimately adding sets of high effort work over time in a logical manner that's not too much, too soon, too fast, but at the right appropriate tempo is what you need to do from the training side of things. And then from the diet side of things, 250 to 500 calories surplus with probably an appropriate carbohydrate, fat, protein breakdown of the ratio of the calories that you're getting. And you're checking off the two really, really big buckets for that. And then when it comes to fat burning, it's kind of like it's going to be primarily a diet-based phenomenon, and you have to be in a caloric deficit. And with that, like what you want to do is you want to try to avoid losing muscle mass while you're losing weight. So, you want to really kind of like pick most of the time where people fail is they're not very specific with their goals. They don't say something along the lines of, hey, I want to lose 8 pounds over the course of the next 10 weeks. Like that's a very specific goal that you would put down, and that increases the probability that you'll reach it. Instead, people are like, I'm just going to lose some weight. I want to look good this summer. And it's like, that decreases the probability that you're actually going to get anything done because you're not measuring anything. But once you create a very specific goal, now you have to like put it into action, and you are going to have to go into a caloric deficit. So you're going to have to eat fewer calories than you're expending on a daily basis. And in order to be able to not be losing an excessive amount of muscle mass, you really have to keep and include resistance training into your lifestyle, because the amount of like making sure that the muscles are under tension and the demand for them to work is still present is going to make your system know that it needs to hang on to that muscle mass. Okay, so when it comes to holding on to muscle mass, the key variable is tension with the resistance exercise. So you want to try, you don't need to necessarily increase sets over time during this time period. That's really better for trying to increase overall muscle mass. But now what we're trying to do is not lose muscle mass while we're losing a ton of body fat. And if I try to continue to use the same loading as I was using when I was big and strong, and just hold on to that ability to keep moving that same amount of weight for like kind of maintenance level of sets, which is, you know, usually not that many, 2 to 3, maybe 4 sets for some muscles, like that will be enough of a stimulus to maintain most of my muscle mass while I'm losing weight overall and dropping as much body fat as I can over the course of, you know, what will probably be somewhere between a 6 to 10 week phase of caloric deficit and fat burning. You know, the other major thing I would say, like there's probably these 3 major things with like caloric deficit, high tension resistance exercise, and the third one would just simply be like having an idea of a diet break involved in your plan. It's and what I mean by that is, hey, if you got to lose like 30 or 40 pounds, like some people might be thinking, don't try to do it in one shot. You know, it's way too long of a time period to look at. Like people do a little bit better with shorter goals. It's almost like if you're in a long race, you need checkpoints rather than the whole finish line. You know, just get to this checkpoint and then maintain. So with something like that, like if you need to lose 30 pounds, like maybe let's take it in 4 chunks of like, you know, 7 or 8 pounds, something in that ballpark as our weight loss targets. And we might go for like, hey, we're going to go 8 weeks and we're going to try to lose 7 pounds. And then for the next 6 weeks, we're going to maintain at that weight. And then after that 6-week diet break, we're going to go back in for another 8-week loss phase. And then we're going to maintain for another 6 weeks. So it keeps your sanity in the process. And it also tends to maintain more muscle mass from a bigger picture standpoint. So psychology and physiology really come together pretty well with that kind of approach. So that's kind of like the muscle and the fat burning side of things, which are for most people the big bang ones that they're really training for.
Right. Makes sense. No, that's great information right there. And like you said, including everything, looking at the psychology and how that's important. Obviously, that being a big thing for me. It's got to be factoring everything in, like you said. So that's great. Good stuff. All right, let's move to the last portion of the show. And what I thought we would do is some word association. I'll bring up a word and then you give me some thoughts. Normally it's word association is one word, but you could give me a sentence or two. So I'll throw some things out there.
That sounds good.
And you tell me what you think about it. Intermittent fasting.
A really advanced methodology that people are trying to use when they're usually beginners.
Excellent. Jogging for a long distance.
You need to get in shape to be able to run rather than to run to get in shape, because it's usually too much of a beat down on people's joints. I would say lose weight, get in good shape first, and then go out and start running. And then you'll be able to really hold on to it and maintain it.
CrossFit.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's good because it got a lot of people to work hard and lift weights and do, Olympic lifts and athletic things. the bad is that it's kind of you walk into any CrossFit gym, you don't really know what you're going to get. Like they're all kind of different from each other and sort of non-standardized. And the ugly is you take a lot of people that are probably not well suited for certain movements, and they just get thrown in the deep end. And a lot of times there's not enough of a build up for a beginner to be able to get them to that point. Like human beings can do incredible things, but you can't build Rome overnight. You know what I mean?
Excellent. The functional movement screen.
Outdated, not not supported by science, doesn't really measure anything, doesn't guide you towards anything. A good idea in theory, but ultimately didn't hold up to the scrutiny of research and science.
What would be a better alternative for that if you're looking at mobility stability? I know I'm breaking the game right now, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, honestly, like I just wrote a book that got published this last year called The Coach's Guide to Optimizing Movement. And I think that's, a much better way to look at movement than what the functional movement screen brought to the table.
Excellent. Static stretching.
Almost no return on investment.
Yoga. I guess that's similar.
Should be used as like a meditative mindset approach modality, but has been misused in the West as something that people believe is going to dramatically change their flexibility.
TRX.
It's fine if you're stuck in like a warfare situation with no equipment, but it's hard to progress. It's hard to apply like a scientific approach to the training with it, and ultimately, kind of like it's fine, but it's not going to take you to the promised land.
Westside Barbell, powerlifting.
OGs of the powerlifting world. Bunch of savages, but I think like kind of overblown, overhyped in terms of like their current standing in powerlifting. And I don't know, like like Louis Simmons has done a tremendous amount of good in terms of popularizing powerlifting and being an absolute badass and like breeding monsters over there. But at the same time, I think that there's some modern approaches to powerlifting that get ignored because of the hype machine around Westside. And there's just like some better stuff out there at this point.
Kettlebells.
A good tool that somehow has created a cult following around them that would rival any cult of any religious sect in the world. And it seems like the people that are cultish about kettlebells almost act like nothing else exists in the weight room. There's barbells and other shit too, like that are great. Like, it doesn't all have to be a kettlebell.
Last one, fasted cardio.
It ain't magic. There's nothing special about it. It's like it's all going to come down to calories in, calories out, and then like work hard. So if you can't train as hard and effectively in a fasted state, then you're not going to optimize your fitness gains. And I don't think there's nothing scientifically after everything's been put together to suggest that it has any sort of special fat burning effects that are better than just normal diet, normal exercise.
I got one more. I just thought of one. The China study.
Oof, like terrible application of research that's confused a ton of people for a long time. And, ultimately like just old, outdated, biased, and really problematic from the standpoint of people thinking that like eating meat is going to cause cancer.
Excellent, Pat. That was awesome. And you're the right man for that word association. That's great stuff. Thank you for your honesty and all your great information. where do we send people to find more information of you, your book, social media pages, everything?
Yeah, the easiest place to go is straight to my Instagram, which is at Dr. Pat Davidson. And, if you go to the bio link, it's got a link to every single thing, because I got a bunch of things out there. I got, a book. I've got an online platform associated with the book that's like a certification model through the system that I put together. I sell a workout program called Athletic Weapon, where people can basically train along with me. I send them the workouts, the PDFs, the Excel spreadsheets. I got 3 different books. I got an exercise database where people can see every exercise that I implement, where I coach athletes going through these things. There's a bunch of stuff, I got the Power Hour, which is on Wednesday every week at Hype Gym in New York City. I teach a 1-hour educational workshop. We filmed every single one of these, and with subscription to that, you get over 3 years worth of Power Hours that people can see and go through every topic that we cover, exercise demos, the whole thing. So I got a bunch of stuff. People want to dive into my world, they're going to be busy for quite a while.
Awesome. We'll throw all those links in the show notes so people could get cracking on all of your great knowledge. Thank you very much again, Pat. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. I really enjoyed this. Great job. Thank you for hosting.
Absolutely.